Music is a major theme in Zelda games, not only as a factor in the story, but also through the album's worth of amazing background tunes, like the one you're hearing now. Everyone is always talking about how fantastic the series' music is, and rightly so, but it left me wondering, what is the worst song in every Zelda game? Before I begin answering that though, a quick reminder that nothing in life is as subjective as music. If you love these tracks I'm about to call the worst, more power to you. With that said, let's get started. Which we of course do on the NES with the original Legend of Zelda. This game doesn't have many tracks to choose from, and what's here are some of the most iconic melodies in gaming, so we don't exactly start easy. Fortunately for me though, I think there's one track here that really can't run with the others, and that's the Game Over theme. Not only is it incredibly basic, it's also incredibly monotonous. It clearly wasn't designed to be heard for longer than a few seconds, and it shows. The melody isn't terrible, honestly. The ending theme shows as much, by building onto it and creating a pretty nice theme. But this rendition used for the menu definitely needs something more than just the sound of an ominous ice cream truck approaching. On to Zelda II, which has a bit of an underrated soundtrack I think. It's honestly really solid, with 0 tracks that are just flat out not good. But there must always be a worst, and I'd say that's actually the first theme you ever hear when you boot up the game, the title theme. Well, it starts out pretty great. This part, after about 30 seconds, is really grating, and in my opinion the worst sound to come out of your speakers when playing Zelda 2. The high-pitched tones really don't match the sound font. It's not easy on the ears. Fortunately, you don't hear this in-game too often, since you'd have to leave the title screen running, but considering the competition in this game is pretty strong, the title theme has to lose out based entirely on this relatively short segment. For me, A Link to the Past has always been where the musical quality of the series went up tenfold. The past 2 titles have great melodies, but the sound fonts stopped them from being as amazing as they could be. This game heavily improves on that though, and keeps up an amazing level of quality throughout a much larger soundtrack as well. That said, the theme for the fortune teller is absolutely abysmal. Don't get me wrong, I get what they were going for. This is supposed to sound weird and mysterious, but that doesn't mean I can't dislike it for not wanting to hear this for more than 10 seconds. I don't mind the main melody so much, it's not great, but it's whatever. The counter melody though, just sounds like Koji Kondo let his nephew slam down some keys for an experiment. It doesn't fit, it's not a pleasant sound, I really dislike it. Definitely my least favorite song of the video so far. Next is Link's Awakening, which has been absolutely saved by its Switch remake, the soundtrack of which I used for this video. Because the original has to work with the terrible speakers of the Game Boy, leading to probably the worst soundtrack in series history. But the Switch remake heavily improves on it in terms of not just sound quality, but also just bringing the impeccable melodies to full fruition. As such, looking for a bad track here is like searching for a needle in a haystack, and I honestly couldn't find one, but I do have a least favorite. And that is On the Beach with Marin. It massively improves once the strings come in, but the main focus of the theme are these modern bells, and I really dislike how they are used. They make the track feel too electronic in my opinion. It reminds me of some rejected Black Eyed Peas or DJ track, something you'd hear on the radio in the early 2010s. It's not a bad song, but I heavily prefer the rest of this game's soundtrack. Things get only more difficult when we arrive at Ocarina of Time. Only one of the most iconic soundtracks in gaming history after all. That said, not every song in this game is intended to be listened to as music, and it's that angle we have to use to find the worst track of the game. And that, I'd say, is Dodongo's Cavern. Now, I'm not stupid, I realize this song isn't meant to be added to your playlist, it's meant to be haunting and put you on edge. But throughout the series, there have been plenty of tunes capable of doing just that while also sounding like actual music. Dodongo's Cavern barely qualifies as a song, it's more noise than anything. At least the vibe matches the dungeon itself, both are not anything too thrilling. On to Majora's Mask, which I think has a soundtrack that's a bit of a step down compared to Ocarina of Time. Still good, but not as good. And that is perfectly shown by the worst track of the game, which I would say beats the fortune teller from A Link to the Past to become the worst track so far. Keaton's Quiz. What am I even listening to here? An organ being tortured? I actually have some experience producing music, and this reminds me so much of when I just started out. It's just one long note that then switches into another slightly different long note. Incredibly unpleasant to listen to, and a rare case of just a flat out bad melody that hasn't happened much so far. Link's Awakening's Switch remake now means it no longer has the worst soundtrack in the series' history, a title that now befalls the Oracle games in my opinion. And that is for a large part thanks to the Game Boy's sound quality, admittedly, but it is what it is. The absolute worst offender though is Crown Dungeon, which is just so incredibly bad it might just be intentional. Not only is it atonal and compressed to all hell, the sound font also doesn't do it any favors. Keaton's Quiz loses its title of worst song so far almost immediately, cause this is definitely a few tiers worse. Listen to this too much and I wouldn't be surprised if you end up with a severe headache, it's that bad. Shout out goes to Ancient Tomb for another terrible track, although this one isn't so aggressively painful to listen to as Crown Dungeon. Next is Four Swords, which has a lot less tracks than the previous few games. This soundtrack is mostly forgettable. There are not enough risks taken here to lead to truly bad tracks. Most of them are simply generic. The worst to listen to I'd say is Chambers of Insight. Now I get the music for a tutorial level doesn't have to be something epic, but this is pushing it a little. This sounds like a carnival, like it's mocking you for playing the tutorial. It's way too goofy for what's still a dungeon at the end of the day. It would fit a weird shop or something much better. Even then, it would still be generic, but it would at least fit. Now it's just a weird track in a weird place that's not really pleasant to listen to. Onto Wind Waker, which has probably the best soundtrack in the series if you ask me. Not only is it packed with bangers, it also has a very unique tropical theme, which makes it incredibly memorable. Picking the worst song here is like picking your least favorite child, it's basically impossible. But I had a duty to fulfill, so I eventually settled on the theme for the Forsaken Fortress. It's absolutely not bad, but as music it's not too exciting, and compared to the rest of Wind Waker's soundtrack, it's a little generic too. This song also could have been from say Skyward Sword or A Link Between Worlds, and it would fit right in, whereas most other tracks feel distinctly Wind Waker-esque. We continue with Four Swords Adventures, which has a track that's coming very close to the title of the worst song in series history. Minor Battle is incredibly annoying, and can consider itself very lucky the sound font of this game isn't half bad. This melody deserves worse than it got, honestly, because now it kinda somewhat works, I guess, even though this song is really unpleasant to listen to, and I doubt there's anyone on the planet who puts it on for fun. And to make matters even worse, this is not a one-time song, like most in this video. This theme plays for every sub-boss in the game. That's not a factor we should underestimate, but even then, I still think it's not as grating as Crown Dungeon. But hey, says enough I'm comparing it to the worst ever, more than other songs from its own game. Capcom has so far had a mixed bag in terms of musical contributions in this video, giving us both the worst track with the Oracle games, but also the pretty inoffensive Chambers of Insight. So now the question is, on what side will Minish Cap end up? For the most part, the Minish Cap has a solid soundtrack. Not my favorite in the series, but it's great regardless. So good job, Capcom. However, this is the only instance in this video where we will find one of the classic Zelda tunes. Because one was butchered so badly here, it has gone from iconic to the worst track in the game. I'm talking about the house theme, as you can hear. The core melody is still there and lovely as ever, but they added a bass to it that has been compressed by the GBA so much it completely ruins the track. I can see the vision, I really do, and so did Tears of the Kingdom, but the GBA's compression destroys it completely. It ends up sounding like you're at a festival right in between two stages. One plays iconic Zelda music, the other has an experimental noise DJ, and they're now playing simultaneously. It just doesn't mash. We continue with Twilight Princess, which has a soundtrack befitting the game, meaning darker, more mysterious and eerie, generally speaking. But that also leads to some tracks I wouldn't exactly put on for pleasure, and one specifically goes a tad too far when it comes to creating a mysterious atmosphere. City in the Sky is a bizarre piece of music, with strange vocals coming in every 10 seconds or so. I've seen several people saying the music gave them a headache, and while that fortunately didn't happen to me, I can see why. It really puts you on edge with how bizarre and otherworldly it is, and that's definitely something that doesn't result in a very listenable track, even if that is kind of the intention. Twilight Princess has many songs like that, where it's intentionally unlistenable, so to say. And I think City in the Sky is the worst offender. Remember what I said about Four Swords Adventure's minor battle? Where and how often a track is played matters a lot. And that is shown even better with my next pick, Phantom Hourglass's dungeon theme in the Dark Dungeon. It's not bad per se, but it is incredibly repetitive, which becomes an even bigger problem when it's used in every single dungeon in the game. Before you know it, you'll be absolutely done with this track, and by the time you're done with Phantom Hourglass, it's enough to send you into a Vietnam flashback. How they came to the decision to make such a commonly heard theme such a basic loop is beyond me, but it is a shocking decision nonetheless. Its sequel Spirit Tracks has a much better soundtrack, with basically zero bad songs. In fact, I'd say this is the first game in the entire video where I feel we're truly going by my musical taste now, instead of just widely accepted conventions of music. I am not a huge fan of awkward themes, used for like goofy moments, which means Zelda Possesses a Phantom is my least favorite track here. Unlike with say the similar Chambers of Insight though, at least the goofy tune is used appropriately here. And I do like this is essentially Zelda's Lullaby remixed to fit this incarnation of Zelda. But as a musical piece, I don't really like it. Just not my thing. I do think it works better as Grooz's theme from Skyward Sword though, so that won't be my pick for the next game. Overall, I think Skyward Sword has a pretty disappointing soundtrack, all things considered. It's all a bit too predictable, too safe, and that results in some generic songs that aren't really memorable at all. Like, oh, we need a volcano tune, just get the dum 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 drums in there and we're good. But generic is at least inoffensive. It's at least all well written and played. Well, all but a few. Link needs Zelda's harp in this game, but it's obvious he has never played it before. So every time he joins in to perform alongside Fi, it results in an absolute mess. I'd say the worst offender is Din's power. Here, Link is just smashing on those strings to produce the loudest sounds possible. It's not good at all. Stick to the Ocarina or baton next time, Link. Next is A Link Between Worlds, which is of course a spiritual successor to A Link to the Past, meaning it also reuses and updates many of that game's tunes. And I'm sorry, but Fortune Teller is still the weakest track of the game. The new arrangement is an improvement though, with especially the drums adding a lot. But the counter melody is still incredibly annoying and just not pleasant to listen to for me. So yeah, I'll keep it short since we've been over this one, but A Link Between Worlds has much better on offer than this. We move on to Triforce Heroes, which is definitely not the best soundtrack the series has ever produced. And for the worst track, it's not often you can call a Zelda theme lazy, but that definitely applies to the Convicted Princess. This is just one D note held for basically the entire song. At least Keaton's quiz switched up a little here and there, this is just a perfect example of monotone. It's honestly kind of unbelievable this actually ended up being used. I can't imagine the composer was proud of this one or the director was happy when he heard it. And then we end up with Breath of the Wild, which changed the approach of the background music in the series completely. Very few areas have actual themes still, most of them now have more ambient instrumentation. And while I can definitely understand the part of the fanbase that strongly dislikes this, personally I don't mind minimalistic music at all, and I think Breath of the Wild walks the line pretty gracefully. In fact, My least favorite track is one of the more traditional themes. Goron City, but only by day, night is fine. It's a little too goofy for me. The trombones create such a cartoony vibe that I guess does fit Goron City, but as a musical piece I just don't enjoy it. It clashes with the rest of Breath of the Wild a bit too much, I think. It's not subtle enough in that sense, it's a bit overbearing. And then finally we have Tears of the Kingdom, which in my opinion sways a bit too far into minimalistic. Breath of the Wild, like I mentioned earlier, walked the line gracefully, but Tears of the Kingdom struggled a lot more. And I think the theme that shows that the most is the depths, which kinda goes for that Dodongo's Cavern barely music kinda wave, but it's so minimalistic it doesn't stick the landing. It's not eerie or unnerving because there's not enough going on, but it's also not engaging or pleasant because it's more noise than notes. So you end up with a piece of music that's just a lot of nothing, and that's a bit of a problem when the depths are an area you're expected to visit quite frequently. I'd say this tune doesn't need a major rework, nor does it need to be a full-fledged theme like past games have had, but this is just too little. But hey, that's just my takes. For all I know, you might be putting Dodongo's Cavern in your workout playlist. That's the beauty of music. Let me know which songs you consider to be among the series' weakest in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel to stay updated on all my future Zelda content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.